So the New York Knicks are not playing any games. They have traded for Karl Anthony Towns. And I don't typically do these like breaking news episodes, but I'm a big Karl Anthony Towns fan for fantasy, real life basketball, the whole 9 yards. And when this came onto my phone today, I was like, about what? So I just figured I would jump on and give a first reaction, especially before I start consuming content from other fantasy basketball analysts, just to give you kind of where my mind is specifically for points league. So we're going to dig right in. No intros, no graphics, no video of me. Just going to run through this article, see what actually happened in the trade, and then I'm going to give you some context specifically for fantasy basketball points league. So Karl Anthony Towns traded to the Knicks for Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a first round pick. Let's listen to what Sam Quinn kind of has to say about it, or read through what Sam Quinn has to say about it. So he says, and this is, a little earlier on today, that they're working on a package for DiVincenzo and Randle to come over to the Timberwolves and send Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. There was something that really stood out to me here. Okay, cool. That the Knicks lost Isaiah Hartenstein, which we all know they lost him in free agency to the OKC Thunder, but also that Mitchell Robinson is gonna miss the beginning of the season. So when it popped up on my feed, the first thing I started thinking about was like, why are they doing this? Like, what? Especially Minnesota, because Minnesota is literally knocking at the door. Like, they were in the Western Conference Finals, had their best ever season, or one of their best seasons ever. Actually, on paper, I think it was their best season ever. And they're like moving one of the most important pillars of their team. But it makes sense for the Knicks, especially with the departure of Hartenstein and the injury to Mitchell Robinson. Another thing that they noted is that Towns, this is what Quinn says in the article, with Towns, the Knicks have found a franchise center, which is huge. In fantasy basketball, Karl Anthony Towns was one of the top 3 players for a couple of years. Like, he was that guy. But he's had some struggles, so his value has decreased. And we'll talk about it a little bit later when I go into the fantasy aspects of this trade. But, I think it's a good look for the Knicks. For the Timberwolves, I'm still trying to figure it out. He also writes, the Timberwolves are coming off of their best season in franchise history. Towns was an integral part of the second round upset of the defending champion Denver Nuggets, but he is also early in a super max contract that would have grown prohibitive for Minnesota over time. So that makes sense. Like, if it's a money game, I understand it a little more, but like, I'll worry about the money later. Just get the chip first, right? But, maybe they feel like they have a better chance with a player like Randle. Speaking of Randle, Quinn writes, in acquiring Randle, they have effectively turned a $50 million offense-first center into a $30 million offense-first center while adding one of the NBA's best shooters in DiVincenzo. So that makes sense. So what they're saying is they're getting a discount on Randle by bringing him over, saving some money while bringing him over. So that makes sense to me. I'm not mad at it if you're thinking long term, but for me, it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like if you're that close, that I'm not really trying to tamper with the recipe too much, right? If you work at KFC, like, you're not messing with the Colonel's recipe. You're not like, yo, let's add some sugar to that joint. Like, nah, just like leave it the way it is. But, hey, I am not an NBA GM. I am a fantasy basketball analyst. With that said, let's talk about the fantasy implications. So last season, according to Yahoo Standard Scoring, using hashtag basketball.com, one of my favorite resources, Julius Randle finished 26th in points leagues last year. He only played 46 games, but averaged 24 points a game, 9.2 rebounds, 5 assists. He was super, super productive. On the other side of that coin, we had Karl Anthony Towns, who didn't have the best season for points leagues last year. According to Yahoo Standard Scoring, he finished at 48, 21.8 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 3 assists, zero point 0.7 steals, 0.7 blocks. So here's my take, and I'm going to keep it 100 with you. First of all, I'm a little biased because I really like Karl Anthony Towns, and I want him to win. Was he banged up last season? Yeah. So he played, give me a second, he played 62 games last season. So yes, definitely that was an issue. But before that, Karl Anthony Towns was a model of stability, a model of durability, one of the healthiest players in fantasy basketball. And I don't give a shit, Sue puppy. I am still drafting Karl Anthony Towns, especially at the value that he's going for. And I think many fantasy basketball managers who don't listen to me are going to say, hey, this is like, draft him even later now. Like his value decreases. But I disagree. And this is my first reaction, but I'm going to tell you why. If you look at Karl Anthony Towns' stats over his career, really the regression in his production really occurred when he played alongside one Rudy Gobert. Let that sink in. Although Karl Anthony Towns has still been productive, he hasn't been that first round value that he was before Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert and that team was built around him. So, with him going to New York, he's going to move into his natural position of center. And you know what that means. Top is off, boobies is out, hair blowing in the wind. I think Karl Anthony Towns is about to go off. So I think that 21.8 points per game, I don't know if it rises as much with all of those mouths to feed in New York. We have Jalen Brunson. You got Mikal Bridges. You got freaking OG Anunoby, right? You got all of these players who are going to be putting up buckets. So I don't know how much he's going to increase, if any at all, when it comes to his scoring. But I think he can move the rebounding numbers up. I think that 8.3 can go to 9, maybe 9.5, which is money green. And then for his blocks, I think he can get the blocks up to 1.5. So we'll see. So I think that he's going to definitely outperform where he landed last season. I also hope that he's healthy, but I'm all in on Karl Anthony Towns. So that's my first reaction take for Cat. Let's talk a little bit about Julius Randle. So Julius Randle arriving in Minnesota and playing alongside Rudy Gobert, I don't think it will affect him greatly. I think that his value will still be high. I think that where he ended the season last year on a per game basis, maybe he might drop a couple of spots, because Ant-Man is Ant-Man. And I think with Karl Anthony Towns leaving, it's officially like, hey, if you didn't know it was your team, you know now. So for me, I think if he finished at 26 in Yahoo, standard scoring, that maybe he'll finish at 27, 28. Maybe he might, rise to the occasion and finish at 25 and as a top 25 player. For me, I don't think Julius Randle's change is going to be as, relevant as the change that we're going to see from Karl Anthony Towns. So I think we still look at Julius Randle as a high value points league player, and we draft him, at the place that really works in terms of our league type, league platform, and also what the draft room is saying to us. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think that Julius Randle is going to take a hit? Do you think that Karl Anthony Towns is going to rise? Super excited to see what you come up with, and we'll keep following this as it progresses. Don't forget, play the waivers, set your lineups, and believe in fantasy.